even before you put together that list, who are some of your favorite church fathers, right? Because we're talking about history and
Mm.
being deeply rooted in history. And so, who are a few of your favorite church fathers? And are there any particular writings of the church fathers that you really appreciate that you think people at home should read?
Yep. Well, no surprises here. My favorite church father is Saint Augustine. Um, and why do I love Augustine so much? I think that Augustine had an intellect or an IQ, right, that was sort of unsurpassed. And you read some of my favorite church fathers, and you read them, and then you read Augustine. There is a quantum leap in
Mm.
Augustine's intelligence and his mastery of philosophy and deep concepts. And he's really going asking the deepest questions and really zooming way out, and he's looking at the big picture of everything. And he is tasked with questions that the fathers before him were not as concerned with. Before him, the fathers had to debate things like the divinity of our Lord, the Trinity, that sort of thing. They were just stuck in the weeds of those debates for so long. Augustine's debating with Pelagius, and he's having to think about things like free will, salvation, grace. Uh, where does grace end or begin, and our cooperation? Like
Yeah.
he's thinking about all this stuff, soteriology, and soteriology. It's just like we mentioned before. There isn't an ecumenical council that goes in about soteriology. It just wasn't really discussed. It wasn't debated. And Augustine is actually getting to these issues, and he's particularly getting to the issue of free will. That's the big issue of his life in a way. Is why is there evil? Why do I keep committing evil? Why do I seem incapable of not being able to commit evil? What is going on? Why do I feel sometimes like the devil almost takes me over and makes me do something that I didn't want to do? And then sometimes God seems to takes me over and makes me do things that I probably wouldn't have wanted to do because I'm a sinner. What is happening? Um, and I just think that's wonderful, and his answers are just absolutely fantastic and very scriptural. He's getting back to scriptural texts that had sort of been forgotten, or um, yeah, just with people focusing on the other stuff. So with Augustine, I'd recommend his anti-Pelagian works. So in the Philip Schaff, Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers sets, that's a volume. Um, there's other translations of it as well that exist. So Augustine's anti-Pelagian works. This is stuff like on the predestination of the saints, on grace and free will, on the Spirit and the letter, those sorts of things. You can find all that online for free through New Advent, Roman Catholic site, but they just have the Scaff set there for free, which was actually translated, of course, by Protestants. So what's so funny is you see all these Roman Catholic apologists and Eastern Orthodox apologists. They have the Scaff Nicene Fathers set on their bookshelf. Protestants translated that, and it's to this day the number one definitive, authoritative text of the Church Fathers. Um, in academia, you're basically expected to quote from that one if you want to
Yeah.
quote the fathers. And it's translated
Talk
by
about being
Protestants.
deep
And
in
there they are
history.
with this Protestant translation of the fathers behind them. They're going, "Oh, Protestants don't know the church fathers." Like, what?
Yeah.
Everything that you cite was written by a Protestant, translating the
Yeah.
original languages. And if you look at these sets here, like these popular patristic sets,
Yeah.
uh, most of these are translated by Protestants too.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's an Eastern Orthodox, um, what is it? Saint Vladimir Seminary Press, but it actually is still Protestants translating these. But anyway, On the Study of God is of course Saint Augustine's masterpiece. It was considered for many a long time to basically be second only to the Bible. One of the most influential books ever written. It is absolutely massive. I'd recommend the Penguin version of that. But yeah, wow, what a book! Gets into determinism, gets into history, what all this is about, etc. It's just so great. So that's Augustine. Probably spent enough time talking about him. Um, Other fathers who I really like, Irenaeus, of course, Against Heresies. You've got to read that. First Clement and the Epistle to Diognetus are big. I think that's pretty much mandatory reading for someone who's really interested in theology. Who wants to be a theology nerd? Got to read First Clement. You got to read the Epistle of Diognetus. These are apostolic father texts. The First Clement was probably the oldest Christian writing outside of the Bible, and it teaches sola fide very clearly. So does the Epistle to Diognetus.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? Diognetus? I think I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I believe-
those. I love Saint Basil. I named my son after him. Um, I love his homilies. I mean, I've got in the Scaff set. I don't have all of them, but you can just get sort of Basil's selected work. So he's got like on the Holy Spirit, defense of the Holy Spirit's divinity, and his wonderful homilies on creation on Genesis 1, which was sort of considered to be a total masterpiece when it was written. I love Gregory Nazianzus. So by him, if you really want to get into deep Trinitarian theology, here it is. On God and Christ by Gregory Nazianzus. Well, this is what it's called, but it's actually it's the 5 theological orations is by Gregory Nazianzus. This is an awesome text. Of course, on the Incarnation by Saint Athanasius, no brainer, wonderful one. What's so good about that is it just it's a paradigm shift because we often think of the atonement and the Incarnation in a particular way, and then you read Athanasius, and it's not unorthodox; it's very biblical, but he just sees it in a completely different way. It's and it's just amazing to get your brain to sort of make the shift when you read Athanasius. To wow, this is just such a different understanding of how the Incarnation saves us. You know, like a big thing for him and for many church fathers is the victory of Christ over demons. You know, how like the whole world was enslaved to demons, and Christ comes and through his crucifixion, where he put the demons to shame, and his resurrection, where he robbed them of their power, you now see paganism dissipate because he's conquering the demons, and like things like that. Like we often just don't really think about that kind of thing, and it's just great to read. Is there any others that I really would like to mention? There probably are, but I'm struggling to remember off the top of my head.
I think that was good, and we can always include, and you can always include as many as you want as well in the in the recommended list. But so that was good. So let's fast